Matt Gilmour sitting in for Aaron Rand today. Tom Mulcair is usually here at 5:05 on Fridays. He's off today, and so we've gone to Victor Henriquez, Public Affairs and Crisis Management Specialist at Public Strategy and Conseil. Victor, thank you for doing this.
Thank you for having me today.
Really appreciate it. I want to start with this shocking story that we had our reporter Angela McKenzie on earlier today to talk about, and obviously there's been some political fallout from it too. The story of Florence, a young woman, that's not her real name, by the way. It's a name that we're being used to protect her identity. A young woman living with an intellectual disability who found herself arrested after sort of wandering into her next door neighbor's home, starting to eat from that person's fridge. She was arrested. She was taken to the Leclerc Institution, a women's prison in Laval, and was held in solitary confinement for 8 days. So deeply shocked is what the Quebec ministers responsible for these files, François Legault for public safety and Lionel Carman for social services, are saying. What's your take on this whole situation and how a failure like this could have happened?
This is a crazy situation, and people have to know that one of the symptoms of this disability is that the person is always hungry. And that's what she was found eating in the fridge of the neighbor, of the resource where she was put in. And when we look at the situation today and the reaction of the ministers, because there was no question period this week, I think they got it pretty easy, but it's going to get a lot harder next week because resources is the main issue here. We know that there have been cuts in the last years. We know that the middle resources don't have the strength and don't have the personnel to take care of those issues. And we need to open new full-time resources where people like that can be taken care of. Because what happened in this case is that lady, she got arrested. No one was there to support her. After that, she got in prison. Once again, there were no resources for her. And she ended up for 8 days isolated and in a big, big crisis. This is not human. This is unacceptable. And I know that the opposition is going to come after the ministers next week to give us more explanation and to explain why they've been cutting resources in the last years and how they're going to manage that this doesn't happen again. This is really awful, Matthew.
Yeah, it's just like you say, but there's resource deficiencies at every level, it seems like. First, they don't have a place where they can actually hold someone in a secure facility who is not necessarily a danger to other people, but is to themselves. And so this home that she was staying in, she could just leave and they wouldn't stop her. They can't. And so that there's a resource deficiency. Then she goes to the judge. Judge orders her to the Pinel to be held. Not enough room at the Pinel, so she ends up at the women's prison. Not enough resources to deal with her there, so she ends up in solitary. So it's so many levels of problems with the lack of resources.
It's a lack of resources, the lack of services. We've been seeing that in the last years in health, in education, in several other fields. And that's a problem because we know the economic situation of the government. There's not much money to invest. But we need to make sure that we take care of the right people. And people like this young child, they don't have resources. They don't have anything else that they can do. This child should have been at least put in a hospital instead of being put in prison. And I think that the CRDI, the ministers, everyone is going to have to answer to the questions. This week was a first one for them. But I'm pretty sure that in the next weeks, we're going to see those people being held accountable. Because that's what we expect as public, is to make sure that people are accountable of the lack of resources or the lack of services that they're offering in today.
Okay, switching gears slightly here, François Legault insisting this week that he plans to run as the leader of the CAQ in the next election. What do you think of this decision? Does he have a chance?
In fact, there's no surprise for anyone who has been looking at politics in the last years, because Mr. Legault has said this very often. He's not looking to withdraw. He's not going to leave the head of the CAQ, and he's looking to have a third mandate. We know that since the first day of the re-election. The thing is that it's not only him who's going to decide, and the pressure is going to be higher in the next months, especially if he loses in Athabasca. Because if you look at the numbers today, the question that is going to be in front of the members of the CAQ is to ask themselves, do we have the same situation that the Liberal Party of Canada had with Justin Trudeau, where basically people were just tired of seeing the same leader? They needed some change, but at the same time, they don't need to change the party, they just need to change the leader. And when you look at that example and you look at the situation that brought us to the fourth mandate of the Liberals and the first mandate of Mike Carney, it's going to be very hard for Mr. Legault to answer to the ones who are going to be saying, Mr. Legault, maybe the only thing we can do is to change you. So that's what we're going to be looking at the next weeks. But for now, we have to remember that Mr. Legault is the leader of the CAQ since the day one, that most of the 90 MNAs, basically they've been elected thanks to him, and they don't have much power to get rid of Mr. Legault. So he's going to stay as long as he wants.
For the CAQ, though, it's a bit different than the Liberals. You mentioned or the federal Liberals, I should say. You mentioned maybe there's a similarity to Justin Trudeau, but is there somebody who could come in and step in and take over the party? Does the party have a big enough brand? I don't think so, based on what you were just saying, to see a turnaround like that.
I don't think the brand is that, you're right, is not as strong as the Liberal Party brand. But at the same time, we've been hearing names in the last years, and maybe it's a possibility. But I give you an example. Mario Dumont was a name that was in the rumors for months in the last 2 or 3 years. You have the actual ministers. You have people in the economic sector. So as long as Mr. Legault is there, of course, there are not going to be many names. But after that, you never know what's going to happen. They've been in power for 7 years. And there's a point where people just get sick and tired of seeing the same leaders. It's something you cannot fight. After 7 years, and especially after the pandemics, where we saw the Prime Minister every day for about a year and a half, it's a possibility, and that's something that Mr. Legault should think about, because maybe it's not about his policies, it's not about what he's been doing, it's just because there's a point where people don't want to see you.
I just want to squeeze one last topic in here. We are sort of running up against the clock, but it's received a lot of coverage in the last few days. But this Terrebonne situation with the federal election, Liberal Party wins by just one single vote. Then there's, it comes out that there's this woman who's voted by mail, and because of an error that Elections Canada made, the ballot never made it in on time and wasn't counted. And it turns out she voted for the Bloc, and so in that situation there would have been a tie. And now, because of these revelations, there are calls from the Bloc Québécois to have a re-election or to recount. I was in Terrebonne yesterday speaking to voters, and a lot of people there think that democracy was not done or not served, and that it's in not just the way it's gone. What do you think about the idea of perhaps having a by-election there?
I don't think we're going to have a by-election there. It's a situation that has happened in the past. I give you an example of Etobicoke Centre in 2011, where there were some irregularities. There was a first judge who decided to switch the result of the election, and the Supreme Court decided to overrule that decision and to keep the Conservative MP in place. So we have example of this. Errors happen in elections. It's just that usually we don't look at them because the difference is a lot more than one vote or even 5 votes. We know today that there are 6 votes who were not received on time by Election Canada, but I don't think that we're going to look at all the laws or change any laws because of that situation. Election Canada decided that the winner is Miss Auguste. Of course, it's going to be very difficult for her, but it's the kind of things where people have to understand that when you send your ballot through mail, it's not 100% sure that the ballot is going to get there on time. And it's something that is written on the Election Canada website. So I don't think there's going to be a by-election, but of course Election Canada needs to be better in explaining the situation, giving the information, and especially making sure that on next election, they have solutions to make sure that this doesn't happen again.
Victor Henriquez is a public affairs and crisis management specialist at Public Strategy and Conseil. Thank you so much for your time, Victor. Appreciate it.
Thank you. It was my pleasure. Thank you, Matthew.